For just the 11th time, the New Orleans Saints and Buffalo Bills will face each other. The Black and Gold have won 4 straight in this series and have only lost once in Buffalo. You have to go back to October of '83 when they played at then Rich Stadium. Today, it's New Era Field. That's where the Saints will go after their 7th straight win this season. And with that, it is our pleasure to say good morning. Welcome joining us here on Saints Game Day. My Super Bowl champ, Scott Shanley. I'm Victor Howell. Our Saints insider, Mike Neighbors, bundled up and ready to join us in just a moment from the sidelines there at New Era Field in Buffalo as we get you set for kick at noon today between the Saints and the Buffalo Bills. In terms of scheduling, Scott, we're right at the halfway point. 8 games on the books, 8 to go, 4 at home, and 4 on the road where the Saints will play today against Buffalo. And let's look at the 6-game win streak that the Saints have put together now. 3 of those wins have been at home. 1 was in London over a very troubled at the time Miami Dolphins football team. 1 was at Green Bay 1 week after they lost their arguably MVP quarterback and certainly future Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers. So you've gotten a lot of breaks. That's not anybody else's fault but the Saints. That's good that the breaks have fallen in there. Now you're going in against a healthy Buffalo team, and weather could be an issue, obviously, for the first time in a while because outdoors and being cold. So now that you're going up, starting the second half of the season, in terms of the Saints going to Buffalo, what's one of those important things the Saints have to bring with them today?
Well, you alluded to it, going on the road in a tough environment and the weather being a challenge. I'm looking for road defense. The things that travel well in this league are running the ball and good defense on the road. And this Saints defense has arguably been the best defense in the NFL since week 2. Far cry from what a lot of us have witnessed the last 3 years, but this defense has really ignited this team, been the reason why they've won all these games. The offenses continue to do what they do. They run the ball well, but this defense, from just understanding who they are, doing what they do well, and continue to do those things. I like the front 4 pressure they're getting. The secondary's playing as good as they have in years. So I'm looking to see how this defense travels on the road today in a tough environment.
We will see how they're able to bring that in Buffalo. And it's interesting when you look at the defense and the success you're talking about, at least on the ground game when it comes to defending the run, which will be an issue against Buffalo. And we'll talk about one of their key players a little later in the program this morning. The Saints defense has allowed the most runs of 20 yards or more, 9, and the most runs of 40 yards or more, 3 in the NFL. They're tied with 2 other teams, but they have been gashed on some big plays. But to your point, the defense has been able to rebound from that and still hold teams out of the end zone.
And that's the key. The key is you're going to give up some explosive plays. That's just part of the deal in the NFL. There's too many good players. Everybody's being paid, and you got to defend and chalk up those plays accordingly. But it's just about limiting those explosive plays. And I think the one thing the Saints defense has done so well since week 2 and since the last 3 years is not letting the ball go over their head. It's demoralizing to a team when you let the ball go over your head and give up explosive plays. All the defensive coordinators chart explosive plays because those things are demoralizing to your team.
This win streak for the Saints started on the road in that first NFC South game against the Carolina Panthers. Do you know how many times since that Carolina game, or including that game, the Saints have trailed? Twice. Take a look at this. You talk about playing from ahead. Double-digit deficits to Minnesota and New England, but then they trailed to Carolina by a field goal. Didn't trail at all in London or at home against Detroit. Then Green Bay got that one score that had the lead. The Saints rebounded and then, of course, took over from that game. And they haven't trailed, Scott, since the Green Bay game. No problems against Chicago, no problems against Tampa Bay. So you talk about being comfortable, maybe playing a little more aggressive. Well, maybe one of the reasons why they have been doing that, as we go to the other side of the ball, balance. We're always trying to talk about that balance. We've seen games when it's been lopsided, way heavy on the passing game. We haven't seen that right now. I wonder if there's a correlation between the two, because they certainly have been solid in this part of the game.
Well, that graphic was perfect to illustrate why this team has not had to panic. They haven't had to throw the ball every down. When you can stay ahead of the chains with the score, now offensively you can hand the ball off, you can stay balanced. And what I think has really helped this defense more than anything is the fact that the offense has stayed balanced, hasn't put them in bad situations. And when you can play with the lead defensively, now you can start dialing up pressures, you can become more aggressive on defense, play with more confidence. And so I think you've heard this term a lot this year, is complementary football. This team has epitomized complementary football.
We haven't had to see Drew Brees throw for those 400, 450 yards. Of course, we've been playing with the lead. And then take a look at this. Again, since the win streak, that sluggish game over in London when it just wasn't pretty, but it was a good win for the Saints, is the only game in this win streak where their rushing yardage was south of 100 yards and it was just south of 90 yards. But look at those other rushing numbers, including that one in Detroit when they combined for almost 200. There was all these questions. Adrian Peterson coming to New Orleans. You have Mark Ingram. You have this young guy named Kamara we don't know about. Now we see why maybe Peterson couldn't find a hole in the Saints offense, because look at what Ingram and Kamara have been able to do.
They've done outstanding. They've been a terrific duo together, and they both have strengths. They both have different weaknesses. And the one thing is they play for the right coordinator and the right head coach in Sean Payton, because he knows how to get those guys on the field, how to match them up against the defense. And that's what this game is all about, is matchups. And that's why Mark, you see him run a lot between the tackles. He's running great. We love Angry Mark.
That's right.
But Alvin has been a surprise pick. They knew what they were getting somewhat when they trade up in the draft. They knew they were getting an explosive player. But for what he's been able to do between the tackles has been impressive.
Let's go get our first check of what the scene is like in Buffalo as we take it to New Era Field and check it on the sidelines and see if he's got a hat, glove. No, he's toughing it out, our South Florida man. This cold weather doesn't bother him. There's our Saints insider, Mike Neighbors. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Victor. How temps 38 degrees right now, going to peak in maybe the low 40s, but no need for a hat. I don't need gloves. Paul Boron and I, we're not wearing gloves out here, are we, Paul? Not that bad. Similar to Scott Shanley's predicament back in 2009, of course, when the Saints beat the Bills 27-7. Big game for Scott Shanley in the defense, big game for Pierre Thomas. And it's kind of a misnomer about the Saints and the cold weather under Sean Payton. Remember, they won their first road game in the playoffs in Philadelphia back in 2014. The last time they played in a game where the temps were really cold, under 40 degrees, you have to go back to the 2014 season. Chicago, Monday Night Football, a very, very cold night. But Drew Brees really braved the elements in that game. He threw for 375 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's funny, the Saints won that game 31-15 to improve to 6-8, and actually 6-7 in the NFC South. But they would have the lead in the NFC South. A bad year for the division then. But cold weather games, we talked about it, haven't been really hard for Drew Brees and this team for the most part, and they talked about that this week.
I think the results speak for themselves, but I mean each game has its challenges. It has its, whether it's the weather conditions, whether it's the team that you're playing, whether it's the environment, the situation, and there's a lot of different things. But bottom line is you prepare yourself as best you can to go up there and play your best, and take things as they come.
I'm from Arizona. I got drafted here. I've had 2 cold games, maybe 2, and they're both playoff games. Seattle and Philly. I mean, we're clearly going to weather storm and play as best to our abilities that we are able to. And again, weather is weather anywhere you go. I challenge them to come to Arizona in July. What's up? That's where I'm used to. So if we have to go down and we have to play in rain, sleet, or snow, it doesn't matter. You still get hit the same.
Wait, what's up? All right, guys, we're just getting going here in Buffalo. Temps in 38 degrees right now. A lot to come. We're going to have your inactives. We're going to talk about the Saints on the road, one of the best teams in the NFL. We're going to have more likely. But you know what? Before I kick it back, this is a family show. And my 12-year-old daughter, Allie, just mentioned this to me this week. She has a joke. I want to see if you guys get this. What did the Buffalo dad say to the Buffalo son before he headed off to college?
Got me.
This is somewhere this is going with wings. I know it's got to be Buffalo.
You don't have anything?
Go ahead.
No.
All right, here we go. Bison. Bison.
Hey, Mike.
Bison.
Hey, Mike.
I got 1 million of them.
Mike.
I got 1 million of them.
Hold on just a second. We'll get back to you in just a moment. We'll go back in Buffalo in just a few minutes. Nicely done, indeed. Tell your daughter a good joke as well. We're going to take our first time out. Bye, son. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of those Buffalo Bills players, including their big threat at the running back position, LaShawn McCoy. He had a really funny story about Drew Brees and the Pro Bowl and preparations by Drew, but he's ready to do some damage to Drew Brees and the Saints today. We'll see how they can contain him. And Micah Hyde, somebody Drew Brees definitely knows about and will know where he is on the field at all times. Time to take a closer look at some of the individuals on the Buffalo Bills we'll be focusing on today, and the Saints will certainly be focusing on. And when you mention Buffalo right now, you have to start in the backfield with LaShawn McCoy. An interesting note here, Scott, that he has more yards after the catch than he does receiving yards. So does that tell you, and it's odd how deep stats can go now in the NFL, but as a defender, does that tell you that they're using LaShawn McCoy with either passes behind the line of scrimmage or right at the line of scrimmage and then letting him do the rest?
Yeah, that's definitely what it says. It says a lot of screen game, a lot of flare passes. You're not getting a lot of routes out of the backfield like Reggie Bush or Darren Sproles where they're running option routes on linebackers. Quick flare passes, get him out in space, one-on-one, and make people tackle, and that's what he excels at, is making people miss him in space.
And when you talk about LaShawn McCoy in terms of his rushing game, note this. In Buffalo's 5 wins, he has rushed for almost 500 yards. In the 3 losses Buffalo has this year, he has a total of 97 yards. So certainly the numbers seem to tell you whether it's his passing game, the yards after the catch, or when he's been doing things on the ground like this. As LaShawn McCoy goes, so have the Buffalo Bills this season.
Yeah, he makes that offense go. He's a dynamic player, still got a lot of juice in the tank. He's getting a little longer in the tooth. He's played a lot of football, but he's still one of those backs as a defense coordinator. If I'm playing the Buffalo Bills, he's one of the guys we have to shut down. You have to make them do something else. You have to make the quarterback beat you, because this guy, he will make people miss in space. He's not a big bruising back, but he has the ability to get through a hole, and just when you think you got him, he escapes you and makes a big play.
Young quarterback taking the snaps for Buffalo Bills and Tyrod Taylor, and he's been getting a lot of attention this season because of the maturation that people have seen. And what they've been saying, Scott, is that it used to be he would step back like this, and as soon as he doesn't see anything, he's off and running. Now he's not panicking anymore, and coaches are talking about how he is sliding left and right. So what, that's buying more time in the pocket and letting things develop?
That just takes experience, and as a quarterback, when you're an athletic quarterback, the first thing you want to do is use those wheels, get out of the pocket, but it also makes protecting as an offensive line hard. And this is one of the worst offensive line pass protecting teams in the league. He's been hit more than anybody this year, but some of that is due to his escapability. It's hard to protect for guys like that, but when he pulls the ball down, he's very dangerous.
As the Buffalo Bills were heading, and this goes to Tyrod Taylor and what's going to help him maybe on offense, at least Buffalo is hoping so. Heading into the 7th week of the season, the Buffalo Bills were last in terms of catches by wide receivers and yards. In fact, their leading wide receiver is a tight end who's been hurt. So, enter the trade deadline. Enter Kelvin Benjamin from the Carolina Panthers. The Saints know all about him. They've seen him regularly on Carolina. And last week, Buffalo had an extended weekend because they played the Thursday night game. He stayed in Buffalo working on their system, and now it looks like he might even start today against the Saints. We're familiar with him. How can he help this Buffalo team?
Well, he's a big-bodied receiver. He's that guy that you can just throw the ball up to, and he can outmuscle DBs. And that's why Buffalo went and got him. They got a receiver that they can just throw the ball up to and win those one-on-one battles. In Carolina, he's somewhat of a disappointment. Remember, Carolina went to a Super Bowl with him, being on IR that full year. He's a guy who still has a lot to prove. First-round pick, never quite lived up to those expectations, but he's going to get an opportunity in Buffalo.
And you're thinking if you're Buffalo and your leading receiver's a tight end, you're not necessarily stretching the field. And with all the yards going to the running back, maybe they have that guy now that can try to stretch the field a little more and open things up for Tyrod Taylor and company. Let's go to the other side of the ball and highlight one of the players on the defensive side. Everybody in the AFC knows about him. 4 interceptions in the month of October. He was named the AFC Defensive Player of the Month, and we're talking about Micah Hyde. And I'm sure when it comes to preparation, if there's anybody that's going to know about Micah Hyde, it's certainly Drew Brees and what he brings to this Buffalo defense.
He was an outstanding free agent acquisition. One of those guys, when he played for the Packers, was kind of a package type safety. Come on the field, never had a full season of starting, and now he's one of the key players on this defense. And the number 8 run defense in the league, so they can stop the run, but he's done an outstanding job of finding his way to the ball, and that's what you want in a safety. Find a way to get that guy to the ball, and he makes plays when he gets there.
It's interesting, too, when you're seeing these highlights, you see all his deflected passes. He even said a deflected pass is the defender's best friend. He certainly has been taking advantage of it as Buffalo's been getting their hands on those passes. We'll take another quick timeout. Our Paul Boron and Mike Neighbors don't need gloves, don't need a hat. Teron Armstead, you don't even need a jacket. What cold weather? He's coming out there warming up, getting ready to go as we're about an hour and 15 minutes from kick between the Saints and the Bills. We take it back to New Era Field when we come back this morning on Saints Game Day here on CST. I neglected to ask you at the top of the program. We heard Mike Neighbors mention it earlier in the program. You played in Buffalo. Your memories of playing up there, was it a cold part of the year when you played there or what?
It wasn't too cold. It was very windy, though. I do remember that. A very windy day. Defensively, we had a good day defensively, but Pierre Thomas kind of stole the show and sealed it in the end, and that was during the 2009 season, kind of a magical run, and we kind of felt things were lining up after that game.
So things were lining up in the 09 season, and things are kind of lining up now. Don't put the cart too far in front of the horse, but we'll see what happens. It's time to take it back to New Era Field and rejoin our Saints insider, Mike Neighbors. I'm sure usually around this time we're starting to learn about any inactives, people that are out. Mike, any surprises on that list for today's game?
I think the big one for the Saints, obviously, is safety Kenny Vaccaro. He's played so great and been a leader in the turnaround for the Saints defense, really enabled a lot of the younger players in the secondary to make plays. He won't be playing in this game, but that is the biggest name for the New Orleans Saints. We talked about the misnomers earlier in the show about this team struggling in cold weather. Well, away from the Superdome, they were known for being such a great home team for so many years. Well, they've been great on the road as well. Think about this stat, guys. The last 3 seasons before this one, they were losing seasons. They were 7-9, meaning they had 21 wins over 3 years, but half of them were away from the Superdome. So let's take a look at the Saints' record away from the Dome. Scott Shanley was a part of this. This team has excelled away from New Orleans as you take a look at the best road record since 2009. The Patriots, no surprise, lead the way, but there you have the Saints at 37-31 trying to build on that here in Buffalo. Drew Brees likes the way this team is playing heading into this game on the road.
Number one, there's confidence. You know, we've won in a lot of different ways, and I think we also, the formula has been validated a number of different times for us. We know what wins football games. We know what has won us football games, and we understand if we continue to do that, we're going to win a lot of games. On the flip side, I'd also say that we are still, there's still a ton of room for improvement, and I really don't think we've scratched the surface yet on either side of the ball as to how good we can be, and also collectively as a team, just how good we can be. So we're still striving for improvement, and we're still striving for that type of game where it just all comes together. It's certainly better to be 6-2 than where we've been in the past, at this point in the season, the last 3 years. You know, I like the approach each and every week. You know, I love the competitive nature that has been cultivated here, and the way that guys enjoy being around each other and the way they push one another. You know, like, we know when it's time to work, we know when it's time to have a good time. You know, I'm such a routine-oriented guy that, man, I get caught up in that all week long. But I have, after games, tried to just, you know, look around and enjoy the roses a little bit, you know, because it's fun to win, and it's fun to see guys excited. It's fun to get back on that plane from a road trip, you know, after a big win and be able to celebrate with that with your teammates. So, listen, it's a great feeling. I hope we keep it going.
All right, guys, Drew Brees and company ready for another road test, but coming up, the coldest edition ever, more likely. All right, guys, I promise no jokes. We're done with the jokes, so the pressure's off. But we do have 3 hypotheticals from here in Buffalo, New York, where it is 38 degrees. No hats, no gloves, no problems so far. All right, let's talk about the rookies for the New Orleans Saints. Our first more likely, what's the better rookie class under Sean Payton? 2006, you had Reggie Bush, you had Jari Evans, you had Zach Strief, you had Marcus Colston, or the current crop in 2017, the Lattimores, the Camaras. You know, we have a lot of talent in this class as well. Which one more likely will be the best?
Oh, well, wait. Will be the best, or has the best impact when they were in their rookie class? Let's get a clarification.
Yeah, the rookie year. Which one do you think is going to go down as the best in the Payton era?
Well, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to go with the 06 class just because of what they've accomplished. You had Marcus was a 7th-round pick. You had guys like that who outplayed their draft status.
Right.
But so far, this class has been very impressive.
Well, that's why I was asking, kind of having fun with Mike, asking about clarification, because the 06 class and what they did, you're right, Colston, we talked about him for years in his career, where he was taken, and look at what he did in his career. But I think right now, the impact of a rookie class right now for a team that started 0-2 and is riding a 6-game win streak, and you look at the names he just mentioned, Lattimore, Rookie of the Month on defense in the NFL, Kamara, what he's doing on the offense, we just showed you those rushing numbers. Right now, I'm almost leaning, and I'm not trying to say I'm riding the current wagon if you're jumping on board, but right now I think the impact of the 17 class has been bigger for the initial year than what they were in the 06 class.
And I agree with you on that statement, because I think the rookies and the young players have been carrying this team more so than the 06 team, which was a veteran-laden team. The rookies have done a nice job of carrying this team so far.
Yeah, it's been nice. Mike, we have a little bit of agreement, if that makes sense, but maybe a little bit of difference as well.
Yeah, I had to clarify. Sorry about that. That doesn't happen often, more likely. But I would say, yeah, this year's class, the way Lattimore has really transformed that defensive secondary that's been a weakness for the most part in the Sean Payton era. All right, more likely number 2, we keep with the rookie theme. Who do you think will go down in terms of impact his rookie season only, the best rookie in the Payton era? Marcus Colston, Alvin Kamara, or finally Marshawn Lattimore?
It's hard to do this with Colston already having the body of work in, but I would say, I think Lattimore, if you said who has the most upside, if you put me back in 06 and make me look out this far, I would say Lattimore has the most upside. He's got it. Whatever that is, what everybody looks for, he's got it.
Yeah, and certainly, as you mentioned, it's always easy to go back and look at what happened. You saw what Colston has already done. Kamara, for what he's been doing and his impact, has been outstanding, but of course, he's been sharing time with Mark Ingram. And as we showed you earlier, in this win streak, the rushing game has gone north of 100 yards every game but one. But it hasn't all been Kamara. It hasn't all been Ingram. They've teamed up very well. But Lattimore, as we know on defense, and this man can tell you right here, oftentimes you're out on an island by yourself. But he has changed the way this defense has had an impact in their aggressiveness and the way they're covering people. And now, Mike, as a rookie, other offenses are avoiding where Lattimore is on the field. That's what kind of impact he's been having. I've got to go with him. I've got to say it's Lattimore because of what he's done already in, 8 games in his career.
As much as I hate to agree with Victor Howell, I have to agree with you on Marshawn Lattimore. And our third more likely, we're going to agree on this. All right, guys, quickly, when you think of Buffalo, New York, what do you think of? And we have props here.
Oh,
I have Jonathan Wilson, the executive chef here at New Era Field. You know what these were? Piping hot wings. But when it's 38 degrees, they cool down a little bit. You've been a good sport. Thanks for coming out with us.
Thanks for having me.
More likely did you think you'd be doing this when you woke up this morning?
Absolutely not. No.
All right. I'm going to ask you, mild or hot? Which more likely do you like better?
My preference is hot.
I ask you guys, more likely, hot wings or mild wings?
Who's going to get the executive chef at New Era Field to come down with a plate of wings but Mike?
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with any flavor, but I would say I'm probably more in the mood for mild than hot. Either way, you can't go wrong.
I can't believe he pulled that off. We had no idea. I've got to go mild, but I give props to the chef for coming down there. Hey, he's looking down on Mike, too. He's got a big plate of wings just looking at him like, I could squash you at any moment with this plate of wings. We're both going mild, but Mike, we are impressed at what you've done.
I knew you would kill enough time for me to finish at least one wing. What's the deal? I got to do ranch with the celery. That's important, right?
No, blue cheese. Blue cheese in the north, ranch in the south.
So win in Buffalo, blue cheese, right?
Always blue cheese.
Listen, I appreciate your time. Jonathan Wilson, executive chef here at New Era Field. We love being here in Buffalo. I don't care if it's 38 degrees. I have wings. I'm good, guys. We appreciate him. We're going to have much more coming up on stage tonight from Buffalo. Our one-on-one with Drew Brees. We'll have our one-on-one with Deuce McAllister. Guys, let me finish off one. You didn't like the jokes, but you love the wings, baby, right?
No doubt,
Back to
no
you.
doubt. Thanks to the chef, Mike, well done. You know what? Just put the wings on the corporate card. Nice job, well done. When we come back, Scott gives you his key for the game, the Saints to make it 7 in a row. We'll be right back. Early in the program, we talked about some of those important parts of this Saints' success. We talked about the balanced rushing game and also defense traveling well on the road. What's Scott's big key for the Saints to get the win today against the Bills?
My main key is do the boring things well. Win the turnover battle, run the ball, play good defense. And the reason this game is important is because who are you going to go play on the road in the playoffs possibly? Philadelphia, cold weather. Seattle, cold weather. You got to get games under your belt like this.
A preview,
and get a win. Yep.
Preview of what could be to come. The Saints and the Buffalo Bills kick it off in 1 hour. Tonight, Saints Tonight. Scott and I will be here. Mike Neighbors will talk to Deuce McAllister, Drew Brees and company from Buffalo. Until then, we thank you for joining us and enjoy your Saints game day.